So I,
Ooh.
I began doing the podcast solo. So we're up to Rob's article. I finished that. I was getting ready to move
Oh,
on
so
to
you
the
started like super early.
started at the normal time.
Oh, fuck, it's 6.
Yeah, you're still getting used to being in California.
Fuck, yeah. I mean, I was taking a nap, so
That's
that's on
literally what
me.
I literally told everyone you were taking a nap.
And I woke up, looked at my phone, and I was like, oh, it's only 5:30. So like a half hour. It's fine.
Because that was the time you did the podcast for years.
Yeah.
Yep. I feel that, Doug. I knew exactly what had happened. So we have workshopped a solo stream. Uh, people more than 5 people said they wanted my origin story up to date for meat and potatoes,
Hmm.
which is kind of interesting because it's my 14th anniversary on the 10th. But now that you're here, we definitely need to talk about Champs Cup. So let's fucking do that right now.
Yeah, dude. The people's champ.
Garrett said who killed him. So yeah, literally, I think everyone on the internet saw. We saw multiple Instagram posts. Greg posted, you posted. Saw some stuff from Tiger Strike Painting. Saw you guys all dressed in thematic gear, multiple different gear sets. Like you guys had wardrobe changes.
We did. We had costumes each day. Uh, Day one we were luchadors, so we had the luchador masks and some Baja Blast t-shirts. And then day two we wore super comfy Hawaiian shirts that had our XPZ logo patterned on them. And then day three was Jersey Day. Typically, like last day of the tournament is typically Jersey Day.
Three wardrobe changes. So yeah, you guys had something thematic all 3 days.
Yeah, and this tournament was kind of like what I would refer to as like the dream for a 6 round tournament, which you and I have advocated for a while, which is you only
Two,
played
two,
2 games.
two.
Yeah, 2 games a day.
I would suck a
Uh
dick to do that. Like that's the way to do it. But everyone wants it saves money, right? Like if you rent the venue, X amount of dollars per minute, right? So let's do it in as few minutes as possible. 2 days, you know. But
yeah, and I mean like I definitely get it, right? Because if you do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday tournament, that's a pretty big time off investment if you have a full-time gig. Um and there was quite a few people who left right after round 6. I would say maybe like half of the total people stuck around for awards. And so like I have to assume that
they had to
most of
get
those
home.
people were
They took
yeah,
their PTO on Friday.
yeah, yeah, dude. But it was still really cool. Like the rounds were quite a bit longer, even though the game time was the same. So like a 3 hour game time, but a 4 hour round because the first hour is the two teams doing the pairings mini game, right? Um, so like waking up early, getting to the hall, going into game one, then you get done, then you have lunch, and then you're like, man, I only got one more game, dude. This feels pretty tight.
Mm-hmm. Bro, that's the dream. So, guys, you guys who are listening, so Eric brought something up interesting. We might circle back to that. He's the one who initially posed the origin stories topic later tonight. He's like, I vote for origin stories for both of you, and you can go back and forth decade by decade. I like that. So, we'll probably do that.
Well, like our whole lives.
No, origin story of 40K, I'm assuming.
Oh, okay.
Disflux, after Wyatt told me you can skip round one, I want to take round one L's and sleep in.
Bro.
Secret
That
tech.
is the secret technique to top aiding a tournament.
Well, boy, the fucking Wyatt sleeper. What are we going to call this? The Wyatt.
People's Champ returns.
God, what is the lazy Wyatt? Try to come up with like a term for this.
Oh,
The sleep
the
in day.
maneuver.
What's the maneuver?
Ooh, let me see. Damn.
Okay, what's your spirit animal? We got to put an animal on it.
I don't know.
Like, what animal
Like,
do you relate to the
I mean,
most?
I think you and I both like the strong will of the badger.
That's a you and Matt thing. So,
Oh, I was just referring to war badgers.
War
Um,
Badgers slap. That's fictional War Badgers slap. Oh, call it the War Badger. The War
yes,
Badger
the good old. What's our war badger friend's name? What's his?
Badgelor.
Yeah, it's the fucking badger maneuver, dude. You show up late to the fight and you always win.
Or call it the Sleepy Badger.
Yeah, the sleepy badger.
It's like a it's just like a D&D in name.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, I love it. The Sleepy Badger. So, on the internet, we all saw your amazing display table. Rottweiler in chat talking about the hurricane bunker. Yes, we do have a hurricane coming tomorrow. It's currently a Cat 4. I just
Ooh,
I just moved into my new Beats lab ahead of schedule, but partially because of this hurricane, at least 50%. So I'm not done setting everything up. Still working. We did a quick makeup stream today, but yeah, this is a full blown biggest hurricane of the season. About to slap that ass.
ooh,
It's gonna crash right
scary.
into North America's nutsack. But we saw your display table on Instagram. We saw the team. We saw everything. We know your awards. What is the People's Champ Award versus like your second place painting award?
Right. So, uh, I did talk to a number of old heads at the tournament, including Brad Chester, who may have been to more ETC slash WTCs than anyone else.
On the Earth.
Yeah. And he could not recall an 8-man team board. So
Like we say, yeah, we asked you to ask him.
yeah, I'm pretty confident that I created the first 8 army diorama board in Warhammer history.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say, it was a pretty cool feeling when what we did was everybody unpacked their armies and we put them on the table, like in their respective sections, and we just rolled that whole thing up. Like the battle barge came in
Fuck.
into the pairing zone, and every single person at the event was like, "Holy shit!" Uh, and so the Players' Choice Award, the way they did it is every team got a like a swag bag where like a t-shirt. There was a handful of paints from Monument Hobbies divided amongst the guys on the team, some challenge coins, some dice, and a like a pile of raffle tickets. There wasn't a raffle; they were just using raffle tickets. And evening one, people who wanted to compete for Player's Choice put up their army displays in a certain section of the hall, and then you had like a little cup, and people could take their ticket and put it into the cup of the team that they thought was like the dopest team for hobby purposes. And uh, we didn't count our own tickets. So I don't really know how wide the margin was. We were kind of hanging out by the table, answering questions as people were coming up and asking about it and stuff like that. And I'm pretty confident in saying that I think that we won Player's Choice by a pretty wide margin, considering how many people were putting their ticket in our cup. Um, and so that's why I say like the People's Champ, right? Is we got the Player's Choice Award. Um, Super great feeling because that was like one of the awards that we were definitely gunning for. With the table, with the army level of painting that we were holding all of our members to, all that good stuff. Um, so that's like the subjective award from the other players at the event. The overall or the gold, silver, bronze, that is somewhat objective judging done by the paint master Jason Craze, who was there as the like Lord of Painting, the paint judge. There was a painting rubric, and then there was on top of the rubric, kind of like what we do at the doubles. He was like, "I'm looking for certain things, like
Like, my name is Jason Craze, and it takes me 3 seconds to figure out who the best painted army is. And then, so the rubric is for the
so
rest of you all.
right." And he did it the exact same way that we did,
Yeah,
right? So
that's how we
like
do it.
day one and day two, there was kind of like a legion of little helpers
Mhm.
that were going around, and they were using the rubric to check all of the armies, and that determined who made top six. And then at the end of day two, if you made top cut, they were like, "Hey, come bring your armies back to this like display area." And then Jason by himself was going around checking all the armies. It took him like an hour or so to like finally check all of the top six. And when you had that chance, he was like, "Okay, you guys have like a handful of minutes. I want you to tell me like who painted what army.
Oh wow,
I want you to tell me like each guy got like
I
a minute
forgot.
and
I
a half."
forgot that this is a team too. There's a lot more.
Right. Yeah. So he's like, each of you have like a minute and a half. Like, give me the rundown. Give me some stuff you want me to focus on looking at. Like, what are you most proud of? That kind of stuff. So like for me, I was just like, me, my style. Like this is my Eldar stuff. Obviously, look at the Tantalus, look at the Incarn, look at stuff like that. And like, I just want to do these guys like 80s Warhammer elf pirate themed with the crazy colors and all that. And so like each guy did that. Um, and what a cool little thing he did was after he inspected a team, he placed a corresponding challenge coin on each army, either gold, silver, or bronze. Or if you didn't get one, that was like the fourth tier. So it was like no metal, gold, bronze, or bronze, silver, gold. Uh, and then once he did that to everybody's army, he went back for a second round and he was like, "Okay, now that I have like a standard in my head, I'm gonna go and adjust these." So like initially, um, he labeled my army as silver, and then he came back and he put a gold coin on it. He's like, "Now that I have like the gold standard in mind, I know that like your army is one of the gold armies." Um, and so like we had my army, which was gold. We had three armies that were silver, and the rest of our armies got a bronze coin. And so we were kind of looking around, and that was kind of a cool feeling because there were some armies. There was like our main competition, kind of with Hobby Goblins and this other team called FAC. Um, they were like, "Oh, well, they got like two golds, but they also had like two members in their army that didn't get a medal." Right. So the competition was really close
Oh, I
for
love
stuff
it.
like that.
That's awesome. So like a gold is worth 5 points, a silver is worth 3 points in a vacuum. I'm not making these numbers up.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think there
So
was any points in
so
Jason's head, but yeah.
so like cumulatively, you would stack your coins up and be like, we got the most points. Like, I love that. That's a really smart way to handle an 8-man team.
Yeah, and afterwards he was kind of talking to us and he was like, even during the award ceremony, he was like the difference between first and second, like it was so close. It was like by the narrowest of margins did this person like edge out over silver, right? And he's also looking at something like he brought up a point that I don't think I've seen in a rubric in a really long time, which was build quality. And that was something that he looked at. I was like, "Oh, okay." So like I haven't seen build quality be part of a painting rubric in a long time. So now that's something that we can work on for next year, because we did have a couple of guys that were like just kind of speed running through building their army, even though like the painting was tight, like the build quality of some of their models was not very tight, right?
That's
So
a
I'm
good
like,
point.
gotta focus on that because Jason cares about that. So now we know.
Yeah, I like that.
um
That's a really. I've never even seen that on a rubric.
um and so yeah, so like winning the player's choice, and then we really didn't know if we were gonna make top three because there were six other. So it was us and five others in top cut, right? So when we didn't win bronze, I was kind of like, man, I don't know if we're gonna if we're gonna go higher than that, right? And so then we got silver, and that was like a big
Surprise.
surprise
Yeah,
for
that's
us.
awesome.
I was so happy about that. Um, so yeah, it was a great feeling. Like all the work on the board, like I was putting in 6 8 hour days for like 3 weeks straight, getting that board ready to go to the event. Like we were literally working on the board the night before it had to get loaded up onto the van to get like final things done. And um I mean, like, you know this, I was talking to Jason about it. So it's like when you're like an artist, um sometimes you have to get into a mode of work where you're like in your own head, you're like, this looks like dog shit, I hate this, I'm compromising. But to everybody else it's super tight, you know what I mean? And so that's
Yeah,
like
I call it
that.
artists deal with this very narrow balance where you are balancing absolute narcissism with crippling self doubt. And it's like it's a tightrope walk, dude. Like, this is the greatest thing that's ever been painted in the history of mankind. And then the next day you're like, yo, they're all gonna find out I'm a fraud. You know, like,
Yeah.
so it's
Somebody
usually in between those two.
somebody in the chat asked about build quality. Like, yeah, it's exactly what you think. It's like, are all your mold lines scraped? Are all your minis assembled with no like visible gaps where there shouldn't
Yeah,
be?
when somebody airbrushes a
Um,
bunch of black Templar and then dry brushes them with like dark neutral gray, for example, and then they paint all their shoulder pads white, and ultimately they've created a very clean battle ready army, right? But then you see that all the gray dry brushing has revealed all the fucking mold lines they didn't fucking take off, and all the fucking sprue bits because they were speed running it. How and so that's it kind of degrades the battle quality, the battle minimum now, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
yeah, and he was also talking about um when you're assembling your models, are you doing it with like love and care and like a plan, like intention, or are you just kind of like slapping shit together, right? So a lot of modern stuff in 40K, there's only really like one correct way of putting them together using the instructions, and they have like a cohesive composition per model.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the old stuff, and there's a lot of old kits still as the standard for factions
Yeah.
in the 40K range. You can kind of just like slap them bitches together
Yeah,
all haphazard.
I got
And
warp talents on the table, and so warp talents are like while they seem like a modern kit, they're like mid modern, right? Like where they are still they're not Primaris like action, but they're not quite Rock'em Sock'em Robot like Space Marine
yeah,
builds where
yeah,
like but you've got two matching arms because they're claws, right? And so that's it. Like then your legs are are unicast, right? Like so you've got 5 sets of legs that are jumping in different cool postures, 5 sets of matching claws that are either like Wolverine stance, T stance, like some, but everything else is up to you. So you got to put some degree of thought into, well, I've got the guy who's leaping to the right, look in, and like, do I, and but I got the claws that sweep across his body. How do I install this in such a way that doesn't look stupid? Right? Did you think of that, or did you just make it look stupid?
exactly. So that's build quality.
Yeah.
Um, and so I gotta shout out a couple other people just because like uh I saw some of their teams there that were doing really cool things. I think they deserve some recognition. Kind of what you and I assumed talking about this project leading up to the event. A lot of teams were like each player had like a 2x2 display board. And a lot of those were really tight, but it's like there wasn't that
It's 8
cohesive.
individual armies that look different. And as we
Yeah,
rerun the long word doubles for how many years? Years. And so the people like this, I always tell people, it's like if you bring like a 2,000 point army and you break it into two 1,000 point armies and put it on like your 2,000 point display board, you're probably gonna get a better painting score than two hobos who just showed up with their Grey Knights and their demons and put them, or their Grey Knights and their Space Marines and put them on their two different display boards.
yeah.
Like so, why
There's an X factor about a single cohesive display
cohesion?
board for multiple armies,
Yeah,
right? Um, so I mean, but however, there was some cool shit. So I wish I knew his name when I was looking at the board. He wasn't around, but there was a really, really dope Beast Naga Orcs army. And the reason it stuck out to me is because like almost half of the board was a real gator skull that was like sunk halfway into the ground as like a giant fossil, like a giant beast fossil.
God damn.
Uh, and that was so fucking cool. I was like, that's a real gator skull as part of that board. Um, and a lot of the stuff from I don't remember their French name, the Quebec team. Uh, but they had a lot of great armies and some cool stuff. So I gotta shout them out. I think they won bronze. Uh, but yeah, so
Who was on that team? Was it like the like Dominic's Quebecs or like fucking Max Dubois Quebecs?
let me like pull it up because I can look in BCP.
Because both those guys are notoriously dope painters. Both Quebec. So that'd be interesting to see who's on these teams.
Man, Equipe, Quebec, 40K.
You can't see any member names.
I'm looking it up. I was just reading the. Oh, of course, it's not going to let me search it because I don't have the special characters on my keyboard.
No.
Oh my god,
the special.
There's like a lot of apostrophes and shit.
A lot of fucking apostrophes.
Let me scroll down through the roster until I get to the E's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Max Dubois, Hellfire Hobbies. Someone in chat mentioned, Kusnatter says, oh man, I haven't seen Max in a hot minute. Guy's an old schooler.
Was this it?
Lot of badass hobby.
Oh my god, it's doing that thing where like the E with the apostrophe isn't in the section you would think it was,
or the accent goo or whatever it's called, like the accent mark.
Yeah, so it's gonna be probably like last. Yeah, of course. Let's see. Alexis, Proventure, Antoine, Boyven, Bruno,
Oh, I know Bruno.
Christian, Nadieu.
Okay, that's
Edward.
I know the squad. Yeah, that's not the Max squad. That's the more of Dominic squad.
Okay.
I know Bruno.
Yeah, so those guys, like very similar to us, they came to play. So like they had a pretty competitive team. They also came hard with the hobby, and they got bronze overall. And they had like a really sick. They had like a big standee with their banner on it, and they would carry that around.
The fucking slaps. Who won the event?
Stat check team. It's kind of like the Avengers. That's what everybody was calling them, because it wasn't a like a one group of guys from some region. It was like they had kind of hand-picked people from all over the world from some of the best WTC teams.
Wow.
So yeah, like they crushed it. Like it was the only team that gave them even a little like the only team that came close to giving them a tie was XPZ Purple Cobras, which was our top 8 ELO team.
Fuck. It's like the dream team, yeah. Yeah, it's out of control. Sounds like you had a good time.
Yeah, dude, it was super fun. The venue was great. It's the same hotel and convention center they do Lone Star Open at in Dallas, and it was great to see the guys.
For the listeners at home, list out your team members so everyone can get a shout, get a roll call. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So Cody Hostetler, our captain, who he's a wild man.
Seahawks.
Yeah, Seahawks. The Matt Butcher, Tiger Strike Painting.
OTP HGZ.
I've been trying to pump him up because like he had a rough go of it with pairings, but he fought hard every single round. And he came to the team late. Like he came on short notice and committed to the event He painted up a sick Votan army. He was one of our dudes that got a silver challenge coin. And he painted that army in basically like 3 weeks
Mm-hmm.
to show up to this event. And like he really stepped up to the plate.
That's one of my
Uh,
students. It's one of my star students.
our mutual friend Jesse Pomkowski from Canada
The
played
tiniest
a
of all
J.
Canadians.
Tiniest Canadian. He was there with his Tyranids looking sick. Um, Hugh Murray. He's a new guy to XPZ. Super great dude. Showed up with
Does
some.
he have a nickname yet, or is it just Hugh?
Not yet, not yet. I think his non XPZ nickname was like Sasquatch or something because he's like a super tall, big hairy guy. Uh, he has a sick demons army, and he showed up and like did everything we needed him to do and had a great time. RJ Abad is our other San Diego local guy here on XPZ with his Tau.
RJ?
RJ,
Feel like I know him.
possibly. Then we've got Greg Hunter, my good buddy, came in
The
with
Reddit assassin.
yeah. Uh, yeah, he was playing Blood Angels. He came in kind of late as a replacement, and then he also painted up that Blood Angels army and on pretty short notice and did really well. Um, and Michelle Forgione is our guy. He's one of Cody's guys out in Tennessee. He goes by Vulcan, and he brought Death Guard, and he actually did really well. Like he had to switch to Death Guard kind of last second when that like not last second for the event, but last second before rules cut off. And he actually did better than me. So he went 5-1 in his pairings, and I went 4-2 in mine. We were like the two highest for our team. I think Jesse also went 4-2 with his Tyranids. Like so he crushed it. And he's a young
Congratulations.
guy, and he stepped up for us.
It's pretty impressive. How'd you guys finish overall?
Not great.
Bottom half, top
We
half.
yeah, so we won twice, tied once, and then lost 3 times. So we were like below average.
Hmm? Well, you came as the hobby squad, right?
Yeah, and like we had some really close rounds. I mean, we did third best out of our 5 XPZ teams that went. So like we did better than Team Nevada and Team Blue.
Hmm.
And so like that was kind of the running joke is that we were like the hobby squad, but we're like, yeah, we came to play, dude. And we did third best out of our 5 teams.
How did the Cobras do?
They got third overall.
Good. Congratulations, XBC.
Yeah, dude,
It's a good
they
showing.
crushed it.
It's a good showing. Sounds like an impressive event. You feel like you're going to go again?
Yeah, dude, I really do. Even though personally I'm kind of opposed to the way that WTC runs stuff. This was a Green Banner event in conjunction with Frontline Gaming, and Steven did an amazing job as kind of the head organizer and MC of the event. And we had some really good judges and active judges for the event, kind of under that under Green Banner's banner, like the way that they think the active judging should be, and like to a higher standard. And I think everybody at the event appreciated that. And I definitely want to go again next year. And having completed the Prometheus stone level of or not Prometheus, who's the guy who rolls the stone? Is it Sisyphus? I think the Sisyphean task of finishing this table on time. I learned so many lessons, and I think next time around it's going to be a lot easier, and that's going to allow me to expand on ideas and do an even better job next time. Because the people's champs want to come back, and we want to win Player's Choice again, and we want to win gold.
That is an admirable goal. I think you guys can do it. There's a lot of energy, like You guys almost did that, right? You're the people's champ, silver. So you just got to keep this ragtag group of hobos committed for a year, which is ultimately why teams are so hard.
Yeah, showing up with all 8 players to an 8-man is a pretty tall order.
It's a worth a trophy all in itself. And I mean, you guys didn't even do it, right? You guys had Greg had to swap in for you guys, right?
Yeah, so Greg and Matt had to swap in. I think like a week before rules cut off, like a week before list sub.
Normal. Normal. Look, let me run back to Facebook real quick because I told somebody I would promote something for them. I put it in Patreon talk.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
All right. So yeah, I was messaged this from somebody. I'm not gonna dox on the internet, but the battle against breast cancer started as just one GT scheduled for 26th to the 27th of October in Fredericksburg, Virginia. But through some effort and outreach, has exploded into 24 separate tournaments so far, fundraising for breast cancer research via the American Cancer Society Together. 30 plus pro artists donating works to raffle off online. Wargames live streaming the final event. Wargames Live is streaming the final event. Big effort, ton of community. Love all going into this to do some good. The Facebook page is new. They're using it to start consolidating the event. So the battle against breast cancer on Facebook. So I'm clicking that link I was sent. Hitting that like. Copy, paste that shit into the chat. Anybody who's listening to this podcast on the way to work, it's not too hard to remember. The battle against breast cancer. It's the one with 40K miniatures in the logo. Because there's definitely lots of battles against breast cancers on the internet.
Yeah.
But this one is well organized and massive and miniature based. So let's do a quick commercial break. Let's talk to our sponsors, and then let's come back and do 20 minutes on an origin story.
All right.
And we're back. So earlier, when I thought I was going to solo this joint before Wyatt woke up from his nap, it was posed in chat to do an origin story. And I said, that sounds dumb. And then like 3 or 4 other people were like, no, let's do that. And then Wyatt showed up. So then it was posed that we do an alternating, kind of like through the decades. And so it'll be about, what got us to here, I'm assuming, and as content creating, podcasting hobos. But also I want to acknowledge chat, Big Papa SC said, so I need to point out that there's a YouTube channel named Next Level Gardening, and the dude mysteriously looks a lot like Kenny. Don't be looking at no Next Level Gardening channels, dude. That's not for you. That's my side gig, dude. So the origin story. So we have the Long War podcast. All right, it's been around for about a decade. Right, 2013, 2014 era, maybe 2015. So roughly, I think it actually is a decade. I think it's 10 years. I think we did that. I think that was last year. So this podcast has been on the air for 10 years. And how many years of those 10 years have you been a part of it now, Wyatt?
Since 2018?
2018.
Yeah.
What is that? 2019, 21, 2, 3, 4. So like 6 years?
Almost.
So you've been on this podcast now for at least half as long as it's been on the air.
Yeah.
So it's pretty long tenure. So obviously both of us started before 6 years ago doing hobby stuff. As a matter of fact, I met Wyatt on Twitch when I started streaming 8 years ago. Because I just
Yeah, well, like
celebrated my
2016.
2016.
Yeah.
I just celebrated my 8 year stream anniversary on Twitch as Next Level Painting. So me and Wyatt go back at least to 2016, 8 years. So then, obviously, we've both been doing this thing longer than that. At least something in the hobby, right? So I'll put my earliest decade relevant to, or my earliest year relevant to where we are today is between the years of 2001 and 2004. And in that time period, I gamed every weekend at a store called Alternate Dimensions in Miami off of Sunset. And then eventually decided to open up my own gaming store as a 21-year-old kid with my friend Mike. Different Mike, not Mike Hespel. And he was even younger than me. We got the idea that we got it in our heads that we didn't like this store anymore because it wasn't supporting us. We were rallying together, bringing 10, 15 people every weekend for 1,500 point tournaments for a year. He wouldn't restock the shelves of 40K stuff. We had nothing to spend our store winnings on. It was progressively becoming more clear that the store was like an anime store, and he was just taking the money we were bringing in and buying more anime DVDs. You know what I mean? So we're getting pretty pissed. So we started our own game store down in Homestead, close to Homestead, Quail Rouge Drive, like 300th Street. And we were lucky enough that my business partner's parents owned and operated a bar that no longer exists called like the Pelican's Nest. And we were able to rent the space above the bar, that exterior entrance, everything like that. And that began my first entrepreneurial adventure into this hobby. It was called Ultimate Gaming Source. As you can see, I have a very like textbook naming convention. Next Level Painting, Ultimate Gaming Source. I have memories, Wyatt, of people coming in off the street, coming in there, and they're like, "Yo, you guys got like poker chips?" Or like, I was like, "What do you think this is? Some kind of source for all your ultimate gaming needs? We only sell 40K models, dog." So started my first business venture in this hobby in that era, roughly between 2001 2004. I ran that store for a year, went out of business because I'm a dumb little kid. I don't know how to fucking do business. And then I road tripped to Colorado. Wyatt, what were you doing in this hobby in 2001 2004?
So I got into Warhammer in 02. Just, seeing it with like other kids, and like kind of like the after school thing. I think it was like another kid brought the fourth edition starter box, and I was like, "This is the dopest shit I've ever seen. It was so cool."
It's probably third
And
edition, right? You said 02?
yeah, 02.
Yeah, it's probably
It was the whatever starter box of like Black Templars and Eldar.
yeah, that was third.
Yeah. Um, and so that was super cool. And then I was like, "Dad, we gotta like go to this hobby store and like see if they have Warhammer." Because I used to do like scale models with him as a kid. Um, and so like the next weekend we went to the hobby store and he was like looking at the Warhammer stuff. He's like, "No." It's like we're not paying like this much for a little like plastic army men when like you can get like one scale model kit for the same price that you can work on for like months, you know? Um, so really I wasn't able to get like into playing 40K until I was like a junior in high school, so '07. Um, so from like 2002 to 2007, uh the only way I was able to get into Warhammer was through the books. So I was like really into the novels. I had like a billion Black Library books. And then I really got into playing it in '07, '08. And there was a store in Austin. It's like a chain of stores called the Dragon's Lair. And there was one particular one in Austin that we would go to, and that's like where I started playing.
What year was that? 2007?
Yeah, it was '07.
'07 as a junior in high school is when you really got to start actually going hard because of cost of entry and access, but you were becoming like a lore hound at that time. You were digesting the shit out of the fucking written word.
Yeah, I mean that's the only thing I could afford, right? So
Oh yeah, no, I feel you. I was like I'm older than you, so I graduated in 2001, so I had the ability to waste my money in more irresponsible ways than you because I had money, small amounts of money. But 40K wasn't like that unattainable back in those days. Like
no, it was definitely cheaper. It's just like when your
when you're in high school, you don't
allowance.
have it. You literally don't have money.
Yeah, and so like I had when I got to high school, like I had a job, and so I would like lay tile during the summer and different things like that. And like you actually make quite a bit of money, at least for a young person, doing something like that, where I had enough money for like the year of doing whatever I wanted to do. Um, and so like the first Space Marine army that I had was because I had done like 3 houses of tile that summer. Um,
Yeah, that's our hobby, right? It's like you're exchanging like one type of energy for another type of energy. It's like yeah. So you started Ultramarines, I'm assuming.
yeah,
Obviously, that makes sense. So in 2000, so he's in 2007. So I'm still in 2004. So in 2004, when I shut my store down because I went out of business, I decided I was going to move to Colorado for various reasons. I was able to sell my entire inventory to my mom, 40K suit. She gave me a good deal on it because she was really just trying to help me out. She gave me like 2 grand for what I had left. I ended up driving to Colorado and, you know, doing various things out there, right? Like worked in casinos as a cook. I ended up pouring concrete, shit like that. I actually at one point worked at a lockdown facility for which was like a school for troubled teens as a mentor. Like I did lots of weird jobs, right? Meanwhile, my mom is like liquidating 40K models, buying new lots, taking pictures, selling them. She ended up embarking on like a 10-year eBay job, like with that inventory. And I'm over here just like painting some models, playing some 40K, trying to figure some shit out. By the time 2007 rolls around for me, that's an important date because that's about when I really solidified the 40K Wrecking Crew. Right, that was the game club that I started back in the day to kind of reconnect with all my homies from like the Miami era. So we had a MySpace page, we had a forum, we had tons of members, we had shirts, and we would go to these events and try to rep, right? So that was the old days, right? Like that kind of what you guys are doing with XBZ right now, But you guys are vastly more organized. All we had was a forum in MySpace, right? So that's what I was doing in 2007 was I was branding super hard with a crew of friends. We were drinking hard, playing hard, trying to win as many tournaments as we could. We were becoming somewhat notorious in 2007. So I caught up to you.
yeah. So for me, my era of like kind of adolescent 40K was '07 to '09, where junior senior in high school going into freshman in college, and when I was in college is where I started getting into tournaments. um and tournaments in those days were a lot different than they are now. um Usually a lot smaller. It was a very different edition back then, so that was like fifth edition. um and so like what you would consider I mean like we had our RTTs, but then like what you would consider a GT was like a little bit different. But that was where like I got into playing tournaments, like kind of worked my way up to winning a couple of GTs. And then in '09 I had to, like late '09, I had to put the game down because that's when I started training really hard to join the army. So I left the job I was at in Waco, Texas, and moved to where my mom lived. And basically for like the like 6 months of that year, like the second 6 months of that year, I just like trained. Lost a bunch of weight and then shipped out to the army in March 2010. So like I actually like I joined the army in 09 and then I shipped in March 2010. And for most of the time I was in the army, I wasn't able to pursue that really. Um, I think it was like I think it was like 2011 before I was able to like be at a point with with that where I could like start collecting an army again, like get some of my stuff from back home, get some new stuff, go to some tournaments in the like upstate New York area where I was stationed. Still like very small, kind of like no name, like nothing kind of tournaments. Um and then I put it down again until 2013, 2012, 2013.
Hmm, that makes sense. Shout out to the chat. Gamers Haven, Colorado says it was fun having you guys play at the store. That was that's the greatest game store I've ever been to in person. I actually recommended it recently to somebody who lives in Denver on my stream the other day. So yeah, that was like kind of like HQ Central, man. We were playing at Gamers Haven in Colorado Springs in 2007. Now I got to catch up to Wyatt. 2010 is when I started Next Level Painting. So in between 2007 and 2010, we're branding, we're playing, we're winning, we're branding, we're playing, we're winning. We're moving into 2010, and then my mom, remember, she was relevant to my story early on. She's created an eBay empire off of the $2,000 investment she made in me, and I, was trying to figure out because I hadn't been able to be an artist this whole time. Like I trained to be an artist. Like I have a commercial art degree. I'm a prolific, award-winning graphic designer. I'm literally, not figuratively, I was the best graphic designer in the state of Florida for 2 years in a row. Every region, the state, and top tier, top 5 in the nation in the Vocational Industrial Clubs of America competition that is held by like trade schools. So like I'm like was at that time the literal best commercial artist the state had produced. Like I had a lot of ambitions and a lot of fucking hopes that turns out did not fucking pan out. Turns out that, getting a realized job as a commercial artist is a lot harder. As a graphic designer is a lot harder, a lot less pay than I was promised, that was prophesized.
Yeah.
One anecdote that comes to mind is I'm working at the Triple Crown Casino in Cripple Creek, Colorado. I'm working at the grill. I'm a cook there. One of my many times being a cook. And they did an internal job posting because that's how they like to do they were like a conglomerate of 3 casinos. And they like to hire from within. And they were looking for a new art director. And I'm like, this is my fucking time. I had my portfolio still and my sick job resume. It was like the most creative amalgamation of both you've ever seen. It was like a top tier magazine die cut, like instrument of glory that I would hand. I've mailed hundreds of these to fucking job to like companies trying to get a job. Like it's just to show you how good at fucking design I am. This is my resume. I brought it to these guys, showed it to them on my lunch break one day. They were like, good God, you're the greatest fucking artist we've ever seen. You're hired. I was like, oh, it finally happened. This is my time. After all this time, struggling in the pits, man, fucking cooking, flipping burgers, whatever it is. And I'm like just on cloud 9 walking out of the office back to my shift. And then I just kind of offhandedly look over my shoulder and say, oh yeah, by the way, what's like the pay? They're like, $9 an hour. I was like, dog, you pay me $13 an hour right now. And they were like, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's $9 an hour. We need cooks more than we need fucking graphic designers before we more than we need a fucking art director, dog. Like Billy's kid can do it. And I was like, fuck you. And I just walked out of there and never took the job, obviously. And so to catch up to what I meant was like my mom was like hustling. My mom was like fucking slinging these armies. She's becoming quite a fucking celebrity at that point. She hits me up. She's like, I got some big lots, like full Space Marine armies. Like, do you have any interest in like maybe painting them? Because I'm playing and painting and winning tournaments, doing all my shit. You know what I mean? And she's like, you want to paint one of these things and we can sell it? And I was like, I have been thinking about the airbrush going into 2010, right? She's like, okay. Well, she bought me an airbrush. She bought me an Aztec testers. It's like a plastic airbrush compressor set. I painted a triple Land Raider Green Dark Angel army with it that I ended up winning a couple tournaments with. It's been fucking amazing. Love that army. Sold it. And I was like, yeah, Mom, I think I figured it out, but I need a different airbrush. I needed a Wyatt Eclipse. Because when I was down at a different game store in Colorado Springs with Mike Haspel, we saw a bunch of car painters, guys doing like the car chassis. They were using a Wyatt Eclipse and CO2 compressors. I was like, I need that. So I went and told my mom, but it's like, $150. I had that money. She's like, I'll buy you one. So my mom, 40K Sue, in late 2009, going into 2010, she bought me an Iwata Eclipse. Then I started cranking them out, right? And I was selling armies on eBay with her. Then in October 10th, 2010, 10, I opened my business, Next Level Painting. And shockingly, I had clients in queue. Now, at this point, I was pouring concrete, Wyatt. Right? I was, at this point now, the casinos are behind me. I'm a tradesman in a different way now. I've been doing flat work for years. And the nature, and also to catch you guys all up or listen to this podcast, I've been fired from every job I've ever had, with no exception. So my life's not going, it's going pretty typical for like a chronically ADHD, undiagnosed or unmedicated, fully diagnosed individual. And so the only reason I can keep pouring concrete is because like I'm a subcontractor. So like motherfuckers just call me or I call them to show up, right? So I'm like, all right, hey boss, I'm not gonna be pouring. I'm not available next week. He's like, that's cool. So I had 2 commissions lined up, go pro in 2 weeks. And then by the time I was done with them, I had 2 more lined up. 2 more. Then my queue was out 6 months. I never went back to work. How did that happen? That's weird, right? It's almost like since 2007, branding in the scene, in the trenches, playing games, winning tournaments, going to every event, winning painting awards, winning best sportsman awards, always being in the scene. It's almost like when I'm like, hey, on Facebook, I'm starting to do commissions. People are like, oh, hell yeah. I almost didn't have to advertise. Right? Like, so then I'm out here airbrushing, 2010. Fucking going crazy. So, caught up to you. So it took me a lot of words to catch up to you because a lot of weird things happened internally for me to get to that moment. But it went from like, it's been hard for 10 years to suddenly everything got easy. Back to you.
Okay, so let's see. So 2012 is, yeah, so that was like kind of a year mostly without Warhammer. And then like late 2012 is when I got back into it because I was kind of like stuck in limbo at the Wounded Barracks in San Antonio, Texas.
You had your accident.
Yeah. And so I was like, well, I literally got nothing to do all day, except sit in my barracks room. And so I was like, I think I'm gonna get back into 40K. And one of the things that had happened was when I was injured, and then like flown back to New York and like started going through all that stuff, right? Like my company was in Afghanistan. So my barracks room had been packed and put into storage, right? So like when you deploy, everybody's barracks room is actually like cleaned out and you put all your stuff in storage. And so like the thing that's supposed to happen is all that stuff is supposed to be like sent to your home, wherever your back home is. And like my mom had gone up there to get like my truck because my truck was in like long-term parking, but all my barrack stuff was in storage. And so we did the paperwork and guys and like just waited all this time and like it never appeared. So I was like, well, something that happens unfortunately a lot of times is when something like that happens and they know that like that soldier is never coming back to that post, um usually that storage is like rat fucked, like people just steal everything, right? um and so I was like, all my stuff is gone, I'm never getting it back, so I had to like start from scratch with 40K. And I just like got back into it little bit by little bit. There was a Games Workshop in San Antonio, and that's kind of where I would go hang out. Met a great group of people, and I think 2013 is yeah. So the same year that I retired out of the military, I got into airbrushing. So 2013 is when I got my first airbrush. And that's when I was like, I'm gonna really step up my thing and like get good at painting. And after I was proficient with that is when I started commission painting as well. More the kind of like side hustle route that a lot of people in our hobby take. I was like, well, my stuff is done. I got nothing going on, so like toss me some cash and I'll paint your stuff. Kind of a thing. And so uh that was kind of my 40K thing until uh 2016, because even though I took a break from playing from 14 to 16, I was like commission painting that whole time.
2013. So it's interesting because I stated everything was really hard for me. Then it got really good, really easy. Right about the same time, everything got really bad for you,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because because it's at some point our origin stories are going to converge, right? And so I've been airbrushing since 2010, just doing commissions, posting on DACA forums, creating a kind of like even more notoriety and more like of a notorious name for myself. Because at that time, as you recall, people hated airbrushing. They said it was cheating. People were fucking super ridiculous and inflammatory on the subject. As I'm like posting just our new 2,000 point army every 2 weeks on DACA forums. You know what I mean? Uh, but my queue kept getting longer. Like people had to wait 8 months for me to even start an army. So it's getting crazy. 2013, I moved to North Carolina. That's when I met EJ. He talked me into moving out to North Carolina. I moved out there with my ex. But roughly in that same time period is when me and Rob Baer started doing business together. And then we interacted with another good friend of ours named Paul Murphy. And we started our first podcast. The podcast that should now be named, that as we refer to it, is called, Forza Narrative. So we started podcasting right about 2013. So more notoriety. We got Spiky Bits when he was still on Blogger. We got Next Level Painting blowing up, and we got now a new podcast. And we were doing that under the Belle of Lost Souls like flagship. So we were like just everywhere at the time. And this is at a time, Wyatt, when motherfuckers were like bloggers. Right? Like you blogged. There was like all these notorious bloggers. Right? There was no live. There was no this what we're doing right now. There's no podcasting. But the times were changing. And so people talked about, well, we need to get a podcast. So we did. Right? We kind of just always did that. Oh, we need to get a YouTube channel, right? I did that roughly 2013. Right? So now I'm in North Carolina. I'm YouTubing like crazy. We're podcasting like crazy. Right? We're talking about ancient techniques. We're fucking doing what we can. We have a lot of interesting side adventures while in North Carolina. Some good, some bad. But ultimately, we part ways with the Forza Narrative podcast and we start the Long War. And so we created a new paywall. We came up with all these new ideas. We started with battle reports. And if you recall, like me and Rob legit invented live battle reports. Like, it's like something people take for granted today. Back in Google Hangouts, dude, We came up with this technique back in the day for like 3 laptops to be in a room on the same Wi-Fi, each with their own Logitech 920. Each would be joining the Hangout call. We'd have all of them muted. One mic, like a snowball, yet like a blue snowball, hanging over the table. We'd have one audio strip on a splitter that both players would have in each ear, sharing the same audio in each ear, like fucking wired earbud. Rob in the other room on the other laptop. And whoever is started the Google Hangout meeting could click on who's talking because rather than it be auto adjust. So he was like a switchboard operator while we're talking and stuff. And in those days on Google Hangout, when you could go live on YouTube. And it was like a open-ended Google Hangout that everyone could watch on YouTube. So we started doing those. We started filming battle reports. And we built our whole brand off of that. Podcasting battle reports. Then eventually we realized, being at the forefront of all that, battle reports are stupid. You think they're a sunk cost fallacy, man. Like, takes 3, and we were as efficient as a human can be, bro, at putting those things out. Still, 3 people in a room takes, say, 5 hours to make the film the bitch. That's 15 man hours. Then it gets put into a Google Drive and Kenny edits the bitch. Another 5 hours, right? Then it gets uploaded, gets distributed. Rob distributes that. Bro, you're into it for 20, 25 man hours on a piece of content that doesn't matter the second an FAQ drops, the second a codex drops, the second a balance update drops. Completely nonsense. So we quit. We put our focus in other places. We had to reorganize the staff a little bit and then discover Twitch kind of all at the same time, right? Like in that whole time period. So then I make it to my exodus to California in 2016. Talked to Kyle Sadi, known as Vagrant Wolf, on Twitch at Adepticon. And he said, hey, you should get on Twitch. And then Rob and I looked at our sticky note that said Twitch ? I'm like, yeah, show me, dude. They were on Twitch. 2016. And I think it was only a couple weeks before I met you.
Yeah, let's see. So I think, because I had moved to Austin in 2016. And I was like fully back I was getting back into Warhammer because I was like, I want to play Warhammer again and I want to quit commission painting. And so I was like, well, let's see what's going on. Let's go to the old Spiky Bits, most reliable news source in 40K. And the front page was like, oh, hey, new episode of Longboard Podcast. I was like, oh shit, they got a podcast now. That's cool. Let me check this out. And it was the episode where you first had Jason on the podcast, Jason Craze, when he was still Slow Fuse. And you guys were talking about being a painter on Twitch. And so it like had nothing to do with competitive 40K whatsoever. But I listened to that and I was like, oh shit, I gotta check this out. And that's when I started watching. I initially started watching Jason because I was like, this guy gets it. He's like the painting guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, all right, we're done. So it's over to Kenny. And then it goes to you. And I was like, nah, this guy's way cool.
You're like, oh shit.
No, I was like, no, this guy gets it. Like this is the Warhammer like painting guy for tournaments and shit.
Well, because also like Jason doesn't really play any games. He's like,
yeah, exactly.
Like I found a niche that is unique. Like I essentially invented the concept of Renaissance Man. Like play is hard, like gameplay first, but the most OP thing you can do is get good at painting. Like that's like, why wouldn't you? Like it's like this whole thing is a competition. It's all about validation. Like I want to win, so I get the validation. I want my painting to look better than yours, so I get the validation. Like I want people to come up to my army and tell me how good it is, so I get the validation.
Yep.
So yeah, and then I remember you jumping on. You jumped on Twitch one time, early on, Jack of Clubs painting, all one word, no underscores.
Oh yeah, that was a mistake.
And that was in the era when, like, man, I was kind of new and like I was reading these fucking chats, dude. I was like, yo, man, like we got fucking Garrett Quinn in here, we got this guy in here, we got this guy in here. I'm like, Jack Clubs painting, get some goddamn underscores in your name. And I would
Yeah,
say
well,
that to
because you
everyone.
remember before I started streaming, my Twitch handle was just like Wyatt Turk. Like it was just my name.
Yeah.
And I think I was subbed to you for like a good like 6, 8 months under that. And I was like, I'm gonna start doing this too.
Mhm.
That's where Jack Clubs Painting came from. And then man, that was such a weird time too, looking back on it, because that was like the fucking giveaway wars with all the other people, because they were like, well, you and Rob and Jason were the undisputed kings of 40K content slash Warhammer content on Twitch. And everybody else could see how much money you were making. They're like, I want to do that too. And but they didn't understand that like the reason you were able to do that is because like you had connections to people with like retail trade sales accounts and you just got all that shit for free. And so we had this like weird time where
Yeah, it's called sponsorship.
yeah, you were sponsored by all these companies. And so like I was like, I don't care about making money, so it's not my game. I'm not going to play that game with you guys. Like I'm just here for a good time and to make friends. Um, whereas you had other people that were like, I am going to compete with Kenny Boucher and Rob Baer, and like you had guys paying like full price for Forge World Titans and like doing giveaways for that, hoping they would make their money back and return a profit, and like literally like bankrupting themselves, right? That shit was wild. Um,
It was a interesting because it's not like that now. Anybody listening to this,
oh, it's so not like that.
Twitch is very chill now. We've gone through multiple iterations of different versions of how the creative section of Twitch works, the creative space works. But when it was new, when it was the day one, when like we jumped in there, blew it up, brought it, merged our audiences, migrated, it was crazy, dude. What was going on
Yeah,
out there?
there was the you guys were like, we're the Long War stream team now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then everybody else was like, fuck. No, we have to make like a super team to compete with the other super team. And they were like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. And I was just like, yo, I'm kind of like friends with these dudes. This is not cool. And there was that whole weird thing.
Oh, so many enemies, so many lines, and so many lines on the sand drawn.
Dude, it was so dumb.
It was a dumb. Have you ever seen that reel where it's like, imagine hating me and I'm at home like this, and it's like a lady dancing with her cat under the ceiling fan, like,
Yeah, exactly.
like I'm just like,
Like
what?
not understanding that like the reason that I'm successful is I'm just like chill with everybody, and you get more out of being friends with other people than you do trying to like be an enemy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there was just like all these people that were like, because you guys are successful, you're my enemy.
Mhm.
And I have to like compete with you. And it's like, well, that's fucking stupid.
That's,
No.
that's why I brought up the origin dates too. It's like, so a lot of hate at that time period was like, Kenny just shows up here and he's successful. What about the rest of us? It's like, did you 2007? That's when I started. That's when I started, man. So like, nah. it's
Yeah, dude. And just like these guys would not understand, like, bro, one, like nobody knows who you are. You don't leverage social media. You're choosing specifically to compete against these guys rather than set your schedule around them, so that because like Twitch is, at least for what we were doing, is very limited audience,
Yeah, it
right?
was. It was incredibly. There was only like 300 viewers by my math that were congruent viewers, and we were all
Right.
trying to share them.
Yeah, or steal them or like whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And I was like,
Well, share them is if you are copacetic with each other and you create like a
exactly.
schedule, right? Like,
Yeah, and some people figured that out, like me, and Pinning Duff, some other guys that aren't around anymore. But then you have these other guys that were just like, oh, I'm just gonna go whenever I want, and I was like, what did you guys like? Did you think that like when you went live on Twitch, there was like a fucking beacon of Gondor and like everyone in America saw it and like was expected to come to your stream? Like, no, dude. Like nobody knows who you are. Just like turning your stream live on Twitch doesn't mean people are gonna propagate. Like, it's not how shit works.
Yeah.
But anyways, like it's a way better space now.
That's when, but that's when we met and, started talking. And then I remember when opening showed up on this podcast, right? We were figuring out who our next co-host was going to be, me and Rob, and we were getting a lot of applications, a lot of real aggressive stance, people trying to get in on it, right? And then I was like, yo, I think this is guy who's kind of like never missed a stream, who's turned his camera on every day for the last 3 years. He's all, like he's never once asked to be a part of anything. He's just always willing to help. He's just always willing to do his part. He's like, who? And I was like, Wyatt, man. Jacqueline's painting. He's like, oh yeah, that guy, get that guy. And then when I called you, or you were like, yep, bitch, I knew. And you already had your segment planned. You already had the Would You Rather queued up. You had everything.
I don't think I said that.
You were like, I knew you would call me. I think you said something along the lines of like, yeah, I wasn't going to fucking ask you a bunch of times. I was going to let you ask me. Like that was essentially your strategy. It was like, just show up and do the fucking work and be the only obvious pick.
Yeah.
And you already had a segment. You were already prepared day one. You had everything, dude. Like, and now that was 6 years ago.
It's been a ride. It's been a lot of fun.
I mean, that's in the air too. Like, I think, the ebb and flow of the internet, popularity goes up, popularity goes down. I've been saying for years that we're past the tipping point. Like our show's past the tipping point. Like my show's past the tipping point. Like until the next thing. And so 6 years ago, we hadn't even gotten to our tipping point yet. So it was a big deal to be on this podcast, to be like in the running to get on this show. Like it was a much more big deal than it might seem today. Mm-hmm. Where everything's kind of gone down, for one reason or another. And someone in chat asked, what's next? Why, what's next?
Man. I mean, right now that's like a hard question to answer, right? Because we had like a pretty big boom during the COVID years, because everybody was online, right? And we've seen a pretty steady drop off since that time. And I mean, like the way that 40K and other Warhammer stuff is is a news cycle is very different than it was for the podcast. Like the release cycle is very different. It's like thankfully the event scene, like the tournament scene, is like bigger than it's ever been and is on a huge upward trajectory. So there's always that, and that's a good thing. But that also means that less and less people are hanging out on Twitch doing hobby stuff or like wanting to consume hobby stuff. I mean, like that's one of the reasons I left YouTube, is just because like you put in an 8-hour day to produce a 20-minute video, and if that's not what you want to do as a full-time job, you only do that maybe like once or twice a week. And so like you do that, and then the way that YouTube works, if you don't meet their sort of like algorithmic release cycle type stuff, like they don't advertise your shit. So I mean, like I'd put in all this work and everybody would tell me that my video is like super dope, but it would only get like 15,000 views, 20,000 views. And you make no money from that. Like you literally make zero, you make like a quarter.
People still come to my channel today, Wyatt, talking about like, yo, I found you on YouTube. You're the first person I ever fucking met or saw in the hobby. You taught me how to airbrush 10 years ago. People say some shit to me like that. Almost every day I'm streaming.
Yeah.
Right. So like in their mind, I'm like the GOAT OG YouTuber, right? Bro, the most amount of money I've ever made on YouTube is $200. Since like to date. $200. So
Yep. It's just that it's a very like I wouldn't say it's a thankless job because like obviously you do get
you get a lot of
validation
validation.
from
It's
your
a
fans.
it's a profitless job.
It's yeah, it's definitely a profitless job. And like I personally struggle really hard with putting that much work into something that I don't get any like payment out of. And so like Twitch was also kind of like trending that way. Um, which is where like uh teaching like one-on-one time, like selling like one-on-one time courses is starting to be the next thing. But then I was down with all that medical shit, you know, and so like I kind of been out of the game for a while, and I'm just now to a point where I can sort of get back into that. So the plan with the next thing is for me at least give it the old college try and try to revitalize this Twitch channel. And if that doesn't materialize, then I guess we're just gonna have to like wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean that's where it is. We're in a holding pattern right now. So I've always said in business. So people say economically that like wealth equals the mitigation of expense, right? Like, and I've always said, fuck that. Wealth is making money, and I've always operated as a businessman under the relentless ADHD fueled like blinders onto the exclusion of everything else around me. Dogged pursuit of my passion, right? Monetize my passion. Straight American dream. And we've gotten to a place, where I have to relent, like, and acknowledge the truth in mitigation of expense. Holding pattern. Like, I'm in a holding pattern. I left California about a year ago. Personal reasons, broke up with my ex. But also, I was kind of trending that way for years. And, you know, COVID bubble popped. I couldn't have got out here at a better time. Like, honestly, I couldn't have planned it better. I mean, like, bro, like, straight up, real talk, my internet earnings dipped 40% within 3 months. Like, it was like the crash hit right after I got here. Like, so I couldn't have timed the mitigation of expense. It was like someone was looking out for me, man. Like, straight universe had a plan. So I was still in Cali at the time. I would have fucking beyond in debt. I mean, I was in debt already. It took me 8 months to pay off like two credit cards and catch up on some bills and pay some back taxes. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it's now that I've done that, it's holding pattern, baby. That's what's next. It's like, lick the wounds, repair, strike. Because we've tried everything. We're throwing everything against the wall. And we're not the only ones talking about this. Rob's talking about this. Every content creator on the internet's talking about this. You're seeing it everywhere on the internet. So
Yeah, and like to the chat's point, like the economy does have something to play with all this, right? So I mean like we are people who make our living or extra money as a premium to the premium. And what I mean by that is like 40K, like your hobbies are like what you do with your excess time and money. And if the economy is in a bad place, you don't have excess time or excess money, right? Um, and so like if people aren't doing that, then they're not interacting with us, right? So we're kind of like, well, you're already buying Warhammer stuff, like make a personal investment in yourself with me to teach you how to paint better, right? Or like to support an artist or to like try to get some kind of like excess raffle thingy for fun, whatever it might be, right? So it's like if the first step isn't happening, steps 2 through 3 through 4 are not happening to get to us. And so like maybe that's the real answer. Like maybe the economy needs to stabilize, and when that happens, more people will start spending more money
mm,
on 40K stuff.
yeah, it's not. It's there was a time and place to make power moves. Like that time and that place is not right now. Like it's about like kind of what you said. Make a concerted effort to get back into Twitch. Have it be low. Like it's a low investment. It's just a time investment. You already know how to do it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it was like literally almost like going to jail, dude. Because like I can't interact with anything. I couldn't do what I wanted to do. And when you get out, you kind of have to start all over again.
Yeah.
So really all I can do is like just start it up and do the work.
Hmm.
Like get back and see what happens.
Yeah, I feel that. And like now that it's so a year past my departure from California. I just moved into the new Beats Lab. I finally invested in things like display cabinets to display my models, started building my Beats Lab with permanents. So like that's what I'm investing my money in. My fucking self. Like make myself goddamn happy. You know,
Yeah.
like
I could have been doing the same thing, like really coming out of those medical issues and like hitting the ground running with getting back into playing the game. Like, dude, like all the whole reason I do any of this is because I just really like playing 40K, right? Like hanging with the bros. And this is just like a way to keep myself entertained while I'm pursuing that, which is sitting at my desk painting, right? And you do get some personal validation from like broadcasting that and teaching others and um like helping them reach their goals and like teaching and that sort of thing. But I mean, like I've been, I moved out to California back in April. And since being out here, it's mostly just been working on myself and getting back into going to events, right? Like I just got back from Champions Cup, and part of going to Champions Cup is I took on a pretty significant burden of responsibility to get this hobby team like wrangle all those guys and get them to where they accomplish their goals for the event, and then also accomplish my own goals with my army and build this diorama table. And like I said, kind of when we were talking about this during that segment, I was putting in like 7 to 8 hour days of working on this table in my living room, just, literally painting with the airbrush, arm extended over this table and dry brushing until like muscle failure. And then it'd be like, well, time to go eat lunch, I guess. And then like get right
yeah,
back to it, you know. And I mean, like we won the award, like we did it. Like the ultimate, like the ultimate goal was accomplished for all that work, and it felt really good. But now that I'm done with that, it's kind of back to like making sure I have my stuff ready for the next GT, but kind of being in a position where I got not much to do during the day. Or like for 2 hours in the afternoon, I can start streaming again.
yeah, I feel that, bro. Yeah, so what's next? We got fucking Cali Cup, we got fucking BalterCon, we got fucking Adepticon, we got LVO, we got the normal fucking circuit, man. We gotta, that's what's next.
Dude, I mean, I'm seeing you in Tampa like real soon,
Oh
actually.
yeah, well, sorry. In a couple of weeks, we got fucking Tampa open, and I'm gonna be fucking kicking it with Wyatt Turk in Tampa. So if you're local to the scene, swing by, say hi. And Wyatt will be the first person to meet my secret girlfriend that no one knows who she is. She's from Canada. She exists.
Kenny's just been dating an alligator this entire time. Real Florida man shit.
Real Florida man shit. Well, that's our origin story episode. It was an. It looked like it was gonna be a solo podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I
Then Wyatt woke up.
pulled the old sleepy badger, came
The
in
old
late,
sleepy badger.
pulled it out.
Bro, if you ever open up a fucking bar, that's the name. Fucking. But hey, let's just remember, guys, we do have a paywall. That's how the world works these days. We have a Patreon page if you want to support the podcast. Really, all that money goes toward is paying the business's taxes, cushioning us a little bit when we go to these big events. Like we run our Long War Doubles events, which are for free. We're volunteers at these events. So that's it. It's really just a way for this podcast not to cost us money. But let's fucking kick it out. Let's kick it out of here. What we normally do, and this is anyone watching, is we're on Twitch, multi-streaming across the globe, right? So we always raid people. We were just talking about that a minute ago. It's a big part of community building on the platform. So anybody who's listening and who's not on Twitch, consider migrating over to Twitch and be a part of this raid. And if you're listening to this on your drive to work, I hope to see you on Twitch.